Elena Marsh had been on her feet for 6 hours straight, and every muscle in her back was screaming for a break. She worked for a small catering company in the city, and tonight, her boss had sent her to the biggest job of the year, the Alliance Gala at Blackthorn Castle, the ancestral home of Damien Voss, the man everyone in the region simply called the Alpha King. Elena did not know much about the world of packs and alphas. She had grown up far away from all of that, in a quiet town where the biggest news was a new grocery store opening. She had taken this job because it paid 3 times her normal rate, and because her landlord was not a patient man when rent was late. The castle itself was enormous, built from gray stone that seemed to swallow the moonlight rather than reflect it. Inside, though, everything glittered. Crystal chandeliers hung from soaring ceilings. Guests in expensive suits and shimmering gowns moved through the halls, laughing in a way that felt rehearsed, as if everyone here had been trained since birth to look comfortable in rooms this grand. Elena was not comfortable. She spent the evening carrying trays of champagne and delicate appetizers, weaving between guests who barely looked at her, murmuring careful apologies whenever someone stepped in her path without seeming to notice she was there at all. It was tiring work, but she did not mind being invisible. Invisible was safe. By midnight, her feet ached so badly that she asked another server to cover her station for a few minutes so she could find a bathroom. The problem was that Blackthorn Castle had no simple layout. Hallways branched off from hallways, and staircases seemed to lead to more staircases rather than actual rooms. Within minutes, Elena was lost. She wandered down a quiet corridor, away from the noise of the party, hoping to find a door that led somewhere useful. The halls back here were dimmer, lit only by tall windows that let in slices of moonlight. The laughter and music from the gala faded until she could hear only her own footsteps on the stone floor. At the end of the hallway, she found a heavy wooden door slightly ajar. Relieved, she pushed it open, expecting to find the bathroom the catering manager had described. Instead, she stepped into a large bedroom. The furniture was dark and heavy, clearly old and well cared for. A fire crackled low in a stone fireplace, and moonlight spilled through a tall window onto a bed with black linens. Elena froze. This was clearly not a bathroom. It was clearly not a room meant for guests at all. "I am so sorry," she whispered to the empty room, already turning to leave. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment, even though no one had seen her. Before she could reach the door, it opened from the other side. A man stepped through, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark suit that fit him as if it had been made specifically for his frame, which it probably had. His hair was black, his jaw sharp, and his eyes, when they landed on her, were an unusual shade of amber that seemed to catch the firelight. Elena recognized him immediately, though she had never seen him up close. Damien Voss, the Alpha King, the host of the entire gala, the man whose name half the guests downstairs whispered with a mixture of respect and fear. He stopped in the doorway. For a moment, he did not move at all. Something shifted in his expression, so quickly that Elena almost missed it. His eyes widened slightly, then narrowed, as if he were trying to make sense of something impossible. His shoulders, which had looked relaxed a second ago, went rigid, and his hands curled slowly at his sides. Elena had no way of knowing what was happening inside him in that moment. She did not know that among his kind, certain bonds were recognized instantly, and without warning, a pull deep in the chest that no one could explain, and no one could deny. She did not know that Damien had spent 30 years being told such a bond might never come for him, since kings were rare, and their matches rarer still. She only knew that the man in front of her was staring at her, as if she were the only person in the entire castle. "I got lost," Elena said quickly, her voice smaller than she meant it to be. "I was looking for the bathroom. I did not mean to come in here. I will leave right now." She took a step toward the door, but he did not move out of her way. He was not blocking her on purpose, she realized. He simply seemed to have forgotten that doors were meant to be walked through. "What is your name?" he asked. His voice was low and steady, though something underneath it trembled slightly, like a man trying very hard to stay calm. "Elena," she said, unsure why she was answering instead of simply pushing past him. "Elena Marsh. I work for the catering company. Please, I really did not mean to intrude." "You are not intruding," he said. I am standing in your bedroom, she said, a nervous laugh escaping her before she could stop it. Something flickered at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile, but close. That is true, he admitted. But you are still not intruding. Elena did not understand what was happening, but she felt it anyway, a strange awareness settling over her skin, as if the air in the room had grown warmer. She noticed the way his eyes tracked her every small movement, the way he seemed to be memorizing her face. She should have felt frightened. Instead, she felt oddly steady, the way a person feels when they are standing somewhere they have always belonged, even if they have never been there before. I should get back to work, she said softly, though she made no move to leave. You should, he agreed. Neither of them moved. Finally, he stepped aside, allowing her a clear path to the door, though his eyes did not leave her. The bathroom you were looking for is 2 doors down, on the left, he said. I am sorry my castle is so difficult to navigate. It is a very big castle, she said. It is, he agreed. Elena Marsh, he said her name slowly, as if testing how it felt. I hope I will see you again before the night ends. She left the room with her heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with the awkwardness of the moment, and everything to do with the way his eyes had followed her. Elena did not see him again that night, at least not up close. She caught glimpses of him from across the ballroom, always surrounded by advisors and important guests, always polite and composed. But more than once, she felt his gaze find her through the crowd, and each time, warmth crept up her neck. She told herself it meant nothing. Men like Damien Voss did not notice caterers. Whatever had happened in that bedroom was probably nothing more than a strange coincidence, a trick of exhaustion and moonlight. She was wrong. 3 days later, a car arrived outside the small apartment building where Elena lived. She was in the middle of folding laundry when her neighbor knocked, telling her a very serious-looking man was outside asking for her by name. Elena assumed it was a mistake until she opened the door and found one of Damien's advisors, an older man named Corwin, waiting patiently on her doorstep. The Alpha King requests your presence, Corwin said simply, as if this were a normal thing to say to a caterer's assistant. Why? Elena asked, though some small part of her already suspected the answer. Corwin studied her for a long moment. It would be easier if he explained it himself, he said, but I will tell you this much. In our world, there are bonds that cannot be chosen or refused. They are simply recognized. King Damien believes he has recognized his, in you. Elena laughed, certain this was some kind of joke, but Corwin's expression did not change. He was not joking. That was how Elena found herself back at Blackthorn Castle, this time through the front entrance, led not to a party but to a quiet study, where Damien waited alone. He looked different without the crowd around him, less like a king, and more like a man carrying an enormous weight on his shoulders. I know this is strange, he said, before she could speak. I know you did not ask for any of this, but I need you to understand what happened the night we met. He explained it as simply as he could. Among his people, a fated bond was rare, recognized instantly through instinct rather than choice. It could not be manufactured or faked. When he had opened that door and found her standing there, something ancient inside him had recognized her as his match, completely and without question. I do not expect you to feel the same way yet, he said. I only ask that you do not run from this before you understand it. Elena wanted to laugh again, to insist this was impossible, but something about the sincerity in his voice stopped her. She thought about the strange warmth she had felt in that bedroom, the way she had not wanted to leave, even when every practical part of her mind told her to. I do not know anything about your world, she admitted. I do not know how to be whatever it is you need me to be. I am not asking you to be anything, Damien said. I am only asking you to stay long enough to find out if this is real. Elena agreed, cautiously, to stay for a while, to learn about the world Damien belonged to, though she made no promises beyond that. What followed was not easy. Word spread quickly among the packs that the Alpha King had found his fated mate, and not everyone welcomed the news. Some advisors worried that a human woman, unfamiliar with pack traditions, would not be able to stand beside a king through the difficult decisions his position demanded. Rival alphas, hungry for influence, saw her as a weakness to exploit, a soft spot they could use against Damien. One rival in particular, an alpha named Callum Reyes, made his disapproval known at a formal dinner, questioning openly whether a king should be led by instinct rather than strategy. Elena sat quietly through his pointed remarks, her hands trembling slightly beneath the table, unsure how to defend herself in a world whose rules she barely understood. It was Damien who spoke first, his voice calm but unmistakably firm. "I did not choose Elena for strategy," he said. "I did not choose her at all. She was chosen for me, by something older and more certain than politics. If you cannot respect that, you are welcome to leave my table." Callum did not challenge him again that night, though Elena suspected the tension between them was far from over. Despite the difficulties, something steady began to grow between Elena and Damien in the weeks that followed. He was patient with her questions, never mocking her unfamiliarity with his world. He listened when she spoke about her old life, her worries about her family, her fear of not belonging in a castle full of people who had been raised for this. In turn, she watched him soften in small ways that his advisors said they had never seen before. A king known for his composure, now laughing quietly at her jokes, seeking her out after long days, simply to sit beside her in comfortable silence. Elena's fear did not disappear overnight. There were nights she lay awake, wondering if she was making a mistake, if she would always feel like an outsider in a world of kings and pack law. But there were also mornings when Damien would find her in the castle gardens before sunrise, simply to bring her a warm drink and sit with her while the sky turned pink, never asking for anything beyond her company. Slowly, she stopped feeling like a woman who had wandered into the wrong room by mistake, and started feeling like a woman who had, without meaning to, found exactly where she belonged. The turning point came several months later, during a meeting of regional alphas meant to settle a growing dispute over territory. Callum Reyes, still resentful of Damien's growing influence, attempted to use Elena as leverage, hinting that a king distracted by a human mate could not be trusted to lead firmly. He suggested, in front of the entire assembly, that Damien step back from certain decisions until his priorities were, as Callum put it, properly settled. Elena, who had been sitting quietly at the back of the room, as was expected of her, surprised everyone by rising to her feet. "I am not a distraction," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I have watched King Damien make difficult decisions with more patience and fairness than anyone else in this room. If loving someone made a person weaker, I do not think any of you would still be sitting at this table with families of your own." The room fell silent. Damien looked at her with something close to astonishment, and then, slowly, with unmistakable pride. Callum, for the first time, had no response. From that day forward, the whispers about Elena began to change. She was no longer spoken of as a curiosity or a risk, but as a woman who had earned her place beside the king, not through birthright, but through her own quiet strength. Months later, at the very next Alliance Gala held at Blackthorn Castle, Elena stood in the same ballroom where she had once carried trays of champagne unnoticed. This time, she wore a gown made specifically for her, and she stood not at the edges of the room, but beside Damien at its very center. Guests who had once overlooked her now greeted her with genuine respect. Even Callum Reyes offered a stiff but sincere nod in her direction, an acknowledgement that the woman beside the king had proven herself in ways he had not expected. Later that night, Damien found her near the same hallway where their story had begun. He took her hand gently, his amber eyes soft in the candlelight. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. "Getting lost that night?" Elena smiled, thinking of the frightened woman who had once stumbled into the wrong bedroom, certain she had made an embarrassing mistake. "No," she said. "I think it was the only time in my life I have ever been exactly where I was supposed to be." Damien pressed a gentle kiss to her hand, and together they walked back toward the light and laughter of the gala, no longer a king and a stranger who had wandered too far from where she belonged, but two people who had found each other exactly the way fate intended.